Alright, so I guess I'll respond to a comment I got on my last video I made from Conundrum, and I'll just read it off. The problem is that I hear the same few arguments over and over and over again. It's like standing in a canyon and hearing an endless echo. It's a broken record on a loop. It just seems like there isn't much activity in the antinatalist community. If these few arguments are so ineffective, one would think that some new ways of reaching people would be in order. But not much is really happening. So want to make some headway? Think about new arguments, new presentation of ideas, maybe some art, maybe some stories, whatever. Antinatalism is basically stuck in the mud. It ain't going anywhere. And yeah, I agree with that. It ain't going anywhere. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. As in, it's not ever gonna. Antinatalism is not never gonna be around. As long as there's people having kids, antinatalism is gonna be around. But as for the first couple sentences you made, it's same few arguments over and over again, and standing in a canyon hearing an endless echo. It's broken record on a loop. Well, I mean, what do you expect out of the antinatalist community? Honestly, I could go to like a vegan community and not hear anything new. I could go to a Christian, group or something like that, and not hear anything about Muhammad or something. Like, what do you want me to? What do you want any of us to do about that? It's just the problem that every group has. You're going to just keep hearing the same things over and over again. If you're in the antinatalist community, you're going to hear the same arguments about why you should be an antinatalist, why it's a bad idea to have kids, suffering, pain, and death, and all that stuff are guarantees for everyone alive, yada, yada, yada. I don't know what you're expecting here. It just seems like there isn't much activity in the antinatalist community. Kind of, yes and no. I think it's starting to take off a little bit more than I thought it was, honestly. Looking at like going to the antinatalist subreddit, I visited there recently. It's been a while. It's definitely got a lot more members. I mean, we can't just go off the numbers off the internet, but it seems like it's starting to get a little bit bigger at least. When I first started that when I first joined that subreddit, I think you have like 8,000 subscribers. Now it's at like 63,000, so give or take. I think it's starting to gain some ground a little bit. And if these few arguments are so ineffective, one would think that some new ways of reaching people would be in order. I don't think we need new arguments, really. I don't know what new arguments you would bring to the table with something like this. I mean, vegans don't do it. No one's criticizing veganism for not having new arguments. As if novelty has to really play a factor with something like this. Perhaps new ways of reaching people would be in order, sure, but new arguments, I don't know. I can't really think about any new arguments that would just, I don't know, that would change anything, really. Um, New presentation of ideas, maybe some art, maybe some stories, whatever. Yeah, I mean, sure, you could do that. Especially new presentation of ideas. Thinking about what, well, I guess now he's no brains in head was saying, like, maybe you don't, well, he's talking to me about it. It's like, you don't have to be so blunt about it, and I'm thinking maybe he's right a little bit. As far as art and stories or whatever, I mean, if it's overtly antinatalist art or stories, I don't think it's going to really do much. Just be like if you slap Christian music on it or gospel music, like you already know the theme of the whatever art form you're going to be using. Seems to be it kind of waters it down or cheapens it in my opinion, but uh, I guess that's just my opinion. Antinatalism is basically stuck in the mud. I don't think it is. And I know you made a video on the critique of the antinatalist activism and stuff. I did watch it. And you mentioned stuff about other groups, um, how they were able to have a plan of action and all this sort of stuff, like the vegans or Mothers Against Drunk Driving, or I think you were talking about slavery as well, and all that sort of stuff. For some reason, you brought up Ted Kaczynski. I don't know why, but he was in there. They also mentioned something about making it easier for people to transition to a childless life. I think that you transition into the other way. You transition into having a child in your life, not the other way around. Like, you can go your whole life without having children. There's nothing to transition into. I didn't understand what you meant by that. Um, but you're also talking about all these movements do all these sorts of things, and you got to remember though that antinatalism is not something a lot of people are behind. First off, second off, if you try to do something like what the Bolsheviks did, or any of that, like have a massive revolution or go fucking you know, protest in front of fertility clinics, it's not going to look good. It's bad optics, if you want to look at it that way. It is bad optics. People are very much driven by the life game, and if you're going to go against that heavy, you better expect some heavy blowback from that. That is not going to work. Antinatalism is a little bit different in the cases of what you're talking about, like veganism and all that sort of stuff. As in, it's not really life affirming. There really isn't a visible upside to not having kids for the entirety of the population because they realize that'll be the death of humanity or the death of the world, and people want to keep this thing going for whatever reason. That's a big hurdle. And you were talking about, oh, every movement had their Goliath. Well, our Goliath is like a fucking, like the Empire State Building tall. Okay? We are up against a lot more than just like, form of government or against drunk driving or something like that. It's like the whole shebang. It's like fighting against the whole game, and especially if you're an etholist. You are fighting something massive. Uh, I don't know how. I can't even fathom how to even bring about like a protest or something, but or have marches or do these sort of community events or something centered around antinatalism or ethylism. I can't even imagine it. I don't know how it would work out, and I can imagine just bringing a lot more hate and heat onto your ideas. They probably won't be accepted. And also, I think it was Forever Will Films is like, yeah, I mean, no one likes a backseat driver. I understand you're doing this to critique everybody, and that's good and all. Like, yeah, we could do more stuff. Obviously, it can't. But for now, it just seems like it's relegated to the internet, and it's really hard to just openly talk about this sort of stuff too. You got to bear that in mind. Uh, Especially in a place like where I live, I can't just go. I only said to like a very small handful of people that I'm actually an anti-natalist. Like 3 people in my entire life, because it's really hard to tell people about it. It really is. I can't just announce to my coworkers or at a grocery store or whatever, hey, I'm an anti-natalist and this is why, or that kind of stuff. You're going to get some serious hate immediately, and it's not going to do any good for the cause. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess I could also say this. I mean, if you want to start a group or something, knock yourself out. I mean, telling everybody else to do it, like, yeah, like Amanda from Forever Old Films is saying, like, no one wants a backseat driver. If you want these sort of things to happen, well, I mean, go for it, dude. I mean, I'll support you in any way I can. And besides that, you didn't link us to any groups that were in the real world. I'm looking at the links and references here and all that sort of stuff, talking about all this veganism and all this sort of stuff. All of these are internet links. There's not a single link to like an actual real world group that I can find. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be an asshole about it, but I mean, I get it. We can do more and all that sort of stuff, but getting the word out there about this is probably the best thing you can do. The idea sort of speaks for itself, and we're not looking to. What we're really looking to do is to reduce the amount of harm that's in the world, really. So your suggestion, actually, at the end of the video, I think would probably be the best solution to this, which is volunteering with other groups. I can't see an overt anti-natalist organization really taking off. I might be wrong. Don't get me wrong there, or especially an etholist organization. I can't see these organizations or groups like that in and of themselves really taking off, or getting some sort of support, or even getting any sort of widespread changes. Because you got to remember, like in the example of the Bolsheviks and all that sort of stuff, they had decent amount of public opinion on their side. We don't have that. We would be fighting, like if we were in that sort of situation, we'd be fighting both sides and probably come out not winning. Don't get me wrong, there'd still be anti-natalist uh, in and about if these groups were destroyed or whatever, but it's just, wow. I don't know how we're going to get it to work like that. Could be wrong, of course, but I think your suggestion at the end of the video where you could volunteer like for like vegan groups or helping the elderly or the homeless or things to that effect would probably be the best measures you can go as far as antinatalist activism goes. Um, Protesting in front of fertility clinics. Sorry, Benadryl's kicking in. Fertility clinics, stuff like that. I don't think is going to really pan out for us. I just don't see how that's going to help the movement at all. So, yeah, I mean, I appreciate Yeah, we do need to sort of self-criticize. You're right, Conundrum. I'm not saying that we should never do that, but as far as like getting anti-natalist activism out there and stuff, I mean, you gave us examples of what we could do, but those weren't really good for what we're trying to do. Like all the examples you mentioned, except say for Ted Kaczynski, which he completely failed in what he was doing, as far as I know. Um, it's just not going to work out that way for us. We definitely need a larger amount of a bigger thing of the population, a bigger chunk of the population to support us. Because this ain't something you could just half-ass do. You can't just half-ass enact ethalism or, antinatalism to the end. You can't half-ass do it. It has to be like an all or nothing kind of deal. Or else it's just not going to work. So, yeah, other than that, I think that's that. I appreciate the comment, Conundrum, and I've read through the rest of the comment chain here because I was surprised that I saw just one comment from you, and I know there's like 9 responses to it. So thank you, make me better, and Hynacia. I've seen Hynacia around. I think that's how you pronounce your name. I'd like some of your comments as well, but I was just going to respond mainly to Conundrum, and that's that. So thank you for listening, and have a good one.